The following recording is made by Group Grey Hours, which contains the recitation and commentary on To His Coy Mistress by Andrew Marvell. This project is a coursework under course E-202, 16th and 17th Century English Poetry and Prose. To His Coy Mistress by Andrew Marvell, recited by G.B. Jason. Had we but world enough and time, this coyness lady when a prime, we would sit down and think which way to walk, and pass our long love's day. Thou by the Indian Ganges side shouldst rubies find, I by the tide of Humber would complain. I would love you 10 years before the flood, and you should, if you please, refuse till the conversion of the Jews. My vegetable love should grow vaster than empires and more slow, and 100 years should go to praise thine eyes, and on thy forehead gaze. 200 to adore each breast, but 30,000 to the rest, an age at least to every part, and the last age should show your heart. For lady, you deserve this state, nor would I love at lower rate. But at my back I always hear Time's winged chariot hurrying near, and yonder all before us lie deserts of vast eternity. Thy beauty shall no more be found, nor in thy marble vault shall sound my echoing song. Then worms shall try that long-preserved virginity, and your quaint honor turn to dust, and into ashes all my lust. The grave's a fine and private place, but none, I think, do there embrace. Now therefore, while the youthful hue sits on your skin like morning dew, and while thy willing soul transpires at every pore with instant fires, now let us sport us while we may, and now, like amorous birds of prey, rather at once our time devour, than languish in his slow-chapped power. Let us roll all our strength and all our sweetness up into one ball, and tear our pleasure with rough strife through the iron gates of life. Thus, though we cannot make our son stand still, yet we will make him run. Now you will listen a commentary on the poem given by Tahmina Jahan, followed by Abid Kashuhak and G.B. Jason.
To His Coy Mistress is a 17th century metaphysical poem written by Andrew Marvell either during or just before the interregnum, that is, the period between the execution of Charles I and arrival of Charles II. This poem is considered as one of the finest poems of Marvell and is possibly the best recognized carpe diem poem in the history of English literature. It is written in the form of the style of construction of a poem named syllogism, including 3 sections beginning with if, but, and therefore. In this poem, the speaker raises arguments with his beloved to be soft and to relax her firm attitude of Puritan reluctance to grant him sexual favors, which indicates the theme of carpe diem as well. Here the speaker in To His Coy Mistress invokes Petrarchan convention, a poetic mode originating in the 14th century in which a male lover uses exaggerated metaphors to appeal his female beloved. But instead of respected adulation, he offers lustful invitation. Rather than anticipating rejection, he assumes sexual domination over his mistress. This poem is as much as a celebration of rhetorical mastery as it is of their physical conquest. In the course of his invitation, he portrays her as alternately desirous and repulsive, but ultimately he identifies the female body itself as a loathsome symbol of human decay. Marvell has applied a number of metaphysical conceits and mighty imagery in the poem. Imageries of time and love can be found throughout the poem. Yet there is a touch of wit and irony for which, in a gentle and satirical way, he undermines the whole notion of a kind of courtly love. Marvell parodies the Elizabethan love convention of listing the mistress's bodily parts and praising each one separately: eyes, forehead, breasts, by giving absurd amount of time to be spent in praising each part. Like a typical metaphysical poem, this one has a dramatic opening. Had we but world enough and time, this coyness, lady, were no crime. This opening dramatically reverses the puritanical concept of crime and virtue and defines virtuous coyness as crime, since it creates a barrier against the fulfillment of love.
Hyperboles and exaggerations are two main characteristics of the poem. Under the condition of having enough time, the speaker states that I would love you 10 years before the flood, and you should, if you please, refuse, till the conversion of the Jews. The flood refers to biblical antediluvian period, which means the beginning of the creation. Again, the conversion of the Jews refers toward the end of the time, according to the Bible. So, it means the love would have been lasted from the beginning of the time till the end, if they had enough time. Then he says, my vegetable love should grow faster than empires and more slow. Here, the vegetable love refers to the platonic love. Then the exaggeration is praising each bodily part of his mistress is intensified and subvert the whole notion by using wild hyperbole. A Marvellian chill can be found in the line, and the last stage should show your heart. At the end of the stanza we find, nor would I love at lower rate, where the use of the word rate gives us the idea of itemizing what the lady deserves.
In the second section, we can find a reminder of the death, a reference to the Cupadium. The speaker says, time's winged chariot hurrying near, which certainly gives us a notion that sees the day while we are young. He paints a picture of mortality through a metaphor of the beloved's virginity by saying, then worms shall try that long-preserved virginity, and your quaint honor turn to dust, and into ashes all my lust. The morbid description and his warning that she best loses her virginity while she is able to garner male attention suggests that it is in fact her beauty itself which evokes in him such fears of time's winged chariot. He relates how they will, like amorous birds of prey, devour one another, an image of sexual consumption which is also cannibalistic. His celebratory cry, let us roll all our strengths and all our sweetness up into one ball, and tear our pleasures, evokes ecstasy as well as antagonistic fury. Then, the iron gates of life represent the vaginal barrier the speaker seeks to break. This is how the speaker, in the last section, eagerly seeks for an alternative to the impossible condition, as the time is limited. Now, if we give this a feminist reading, then the genre of blazon the verbal inventory of a woman's physical attributes, it's certainly problematic for the way in which it objectifies the female body, and Marvell takes the objectification further by negating even the pretension of romantic sincerity. With witty and erotic conceits, the speaker mocks contemporary notion of virginity and expresses disgust at the female body as a symbolic place of death. He devalued the virginity by saying quaint honor, an oxymoron where quaint is a reference to the female genitalia in the medieval literature. His final description of consummation is a triumphant of Cupadium that is also disturbingly a violent indictment of the female subject. Again, if we analyze the poem through the three parts of the psychic apparatus defined in Sigmund Freud's structural model of psyche, id, ego, and superego. The lover's personality can be considered as a battleground of three elements. Though ego and superego appear to be functional in the first two parts of the poem, they subside and sink into nothingness in the final part of the poem. The third stanza is particularly written in an amoral and erotic strand where the desires to have physical interaction seems to grow strong, that he cannot think about the social, religious, and ethical implications. So, id remains dormant in the first two, but forcefully makes its way towards the surface and become dominant in the final part of the poem and snatched the victory